All right, all right, all right, all right. Welcome back to the pod. The Four Agreements, pages 105, 106, 107. Didn't forget, I just haven't been reading it. It goes up to page 140, so we're going to be 37 or so pages away. Who knows how long that will take at this rate. So basically, it talks about this third solution. They call this third solution initiation of the dead. Basically saying on page 105, when we die, symbolically, the parasite has to die. So if you remember, this parasite is kind of feeding, it's being fed by us. And based on our negativity or the agreements that we've chosen to believe in, usually related to negative stuff, emotions, fear. No, it's not talking about like fear of things that we need to be afraid of, like, maybe you don't want to tightrope walk from like 100 feet over a cliff, or you don't want to skydive or do something that seems really potentially dangerous. Like, it's not saying go do like extreme dangerous things, but there's a lot that we hold ourselves back from, and I'll talk more to that. um but uh you know towards the bottom of page 105, it says there's like this new section, and it says the art of transformation, the dream of the second attention. um So it says the process of domestication can be called the dream of the first attention, and that was how your attention was used for the first time to create your first dream of life, and you didn't really have a choice in it. Like on page 106, it explains, you're no longer a child, and this is called the dream of second attention, the new dream. You're no longer a child. It's up to you to choose what to believe and what not to believe. And, I really like this part where it says on page 107, the next step is to develop awareness of all the self limiting, fear based beliefs that make you unhappy. And you have a choice to do away with this. I mean, we can feed that parasite, right? We can either feed the parasite and keep feeding those fears, or we can not feed the parasite and try to determine how it is that we can work with this. And adopting the four agreements is basically, it says uh, it, it's a declaration of war to regain your freedom from the parasite. That's what it says on page 107. So I would say a lot of people, maybe uh, in different categories, have different types of fears. Like, I can recognize uh, things that are like fear of failure. So, like, for me, when it comes to like education and career related things, I do get some hangups. just because I've had so many weird experiences with school and work where I'm like, there did come up in my past, some things that I felt were, yes, I had a role in it for sure. Um, there's accountability on my end, but then I was kind of, you know, having some other people that were in some ways kind of like against me. Um, and that kind of made it so, there was definitely some form of failure involved or just not being able to kind of get to the goals that I wanted, not fully because of myself, but because there were other people kind of gatekeeping that. And so I wasn't really able to kind of keep trying to use my full potential. But in a way, they did me a favor, you know. They probably saved me, $250,000 in debt. They saved me, from having to get into a field where by this time in 2023, I wouldn't have wanted to be working in the field anyways. Because I did kind of go off the beaten path or off the path of why I had gone into clinical psych anyways. I mean, my initial plan was to get back into research, move back to LA, try and work somewhere like UCLA, a nice lab, and just that's what I wanted to do. And I stumbled into the clinical side because I naturally have a gift in that area, but it's not really what interests me. And it interests me to some extent, but not daily for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, or more than 40 hours a week. Um, Even now, I don't want to spend my life dealing with people's problems like that. Like, that's what I like about podcasting is because there is more of like, I feel like there's more of that, like, okay, let's kind of like explore this together and then try to talk about, some valuable information. Um, I feel like it's more thought provoking. It almost feels like when I was doing like group therapy sessions, I kind of was able to kind of, you know, pull out themes that people would gravitate towards or might need to have their minds, gravitating towards. Um, People in my life, people that I just come across, just common themes that I notice coming up all the time. Um, like today, this theme of focus, of fogginess, of fears and things that are creating negativity, that's been coming up since yesterday for me. Before I even opened this book, it had nothing to do with the book. Like I wasn't even reading the book for, I don't know, weeks at this point. And something that I tuned into last night, it was Lincoln from Channel Higher Self, and it was the episode about um, vibrations, kind of along the lines of manifesting. I can't remember the exact title, but it was something about vibrations. It's like a 3 hour long episode. And I listened to like an hour 45 minutes of it last night until it got like kind of weird. I kind of woke up during a part that was weird because I remember kind of waking up listening to it. But he has these long pauses sometimes. So it just started talking all of a sudden. Like, cause I guess I was kind of like in and out of sleep a little bit, I guess. And I was like dozing off back to sleep. And then like my phone just starts like talking. And I was like, oh shoot. Like I forgot I was even like listening to this. And like, cause he had taken like a long pause during the meditation and he was still going. But I thought that maybe I'd turned off my phone or something. I'd kind of forgotten what I was actually doing at that point. Um, because I was partially asleep, but I don't know. But yeah, It's pretty much a lot of good food for thought. Um, and I guess that was something I noticed. All right, guys, sorry. I was interrupted. I don't even know what I was talking about. I guess the whole aspect of um, fear-based choices. So I would say, try and exercise. Try and exercise. Try this exercise. You know, what do you think is something that you're avoiding that's not a danger? Uh, it's not like um, something that's like, oh, I'm avoiding this thing because there's like an actual like threatening danger. Um, think about things like that. Um, sorry, these windows. Trying to get a little airflow. There we go. Think about things that, and I'll list off some categories to help. What do you find is something in your life that promotes fear? Now, I don't want to talk about specific people, but I can give a bunch of examples just because I've worked with people for so long. Um, but I'll say categories, right? Because I was listening to a podcast today, and they talked about you know this kind of concept of like there's a YouTuber who's financially successful. He practices budgeting, getting money, kind of like building uh, his own successful brand and everything. And he's good at it. And so people come to him for advice. It's not his job description, but people come to him because they're like, well, you got it together. Like, how'd you get it together? So he would kind of talk about what he did and stuff. The guy I'm talking about is Jack. Jack um on the iced coffee hour mostly. Like he works with Graham Stephan. He talks about his outreach process of how he tried to get to work with Graham just to do anything, even if it was for free, just to prove himself, and then got a paid position where he wasn't being paid a lot, but because the multiple channels that they have are successful, that Jack has been helping Graham working on for a while now, you know, they're successful together. Um, but think about, someone like that, someone like Jack, who people come to him and they're like, okay, how did you get wealthy? How did you get in shape? Like, how is your mindset so clear and like, you're not suffering from depression and all these things? Like, not to say that there's like a foolproof or like a guaranteed way to like never be depressed or anything or never have anxiety. I don't really know. Maybe there is, but I don't really know. Um, I think sometimes things just biologically happen. Um, and there's going to be stuff like grief and loss and trauma, things like that that I don't know if you can really just avoid, even if you did tend to your mindset as much as is humanly possible and tend to your sleep schedules and your eating and your exercising and all that kind of stuff. But he tells people, everyone knows the same information, right? We all know, exercise, eat healthy. We know how much to exercise. We know basically what we're supposed to eat, what we're not supposed to eat. We know how much sunlight we need to get. Most of this stuff nowadays is like kind of like basic knowledge. Like there are people that might not know, but I feel like most people know. Okay, 30 minutes of cardio 5 times a week. Eating fruits and vegetables, like a colorful plate, not eating too much meat. And if you are, like, I don't know, like people have these debates about meat and carbs and all these kind of things. And definitely, I think we can all agree on, sodium levels, sugar levels, fat levels, and just processed foods in general, that those are maybe not the best thing to only consume just that kind of stuff. Everyone knows, when you get money, when you get a paycheck, how much you need to live off of. If you didn't have any other extra expenses that you took on to yourself, everybody kind of knows, like, this is the amount of money I need, this is the amount of money I actually spend, you know, and if I were to budget, this is what I'd have to cut back if I wanted to like save. Like, I think most people can kind of figure those numbers out pretty quickly. A lot of times nowadays, unfortunately, though, most people aren't even making enough to kind of make it make the ends meet, so that becomes a very unfortunate discussion. But there are a lot of people that, technically on paper they make enough money, but when it comes to debt and buying apps and or subscriptions and all these things that seem like, oh, it's $20 here, it's $30 there, and next thing you know, you spent like an extra 600, 700, 800 bucks in a month that you don't have to spend, or that's coming up on credit on small payments here and there. Like, you know what I mean? It's like stuff like that where you're like, that doesn't really work. It doesn't really work, right? Um, but everyone knows what they need to change, right? Most people know what it is, but we ask because we're like, there's still that kind of this other guy. What was his name? He wrote a book. Manson. Dang it, I'm blanking on his name. 1 second, I gotta find the name. My friend wrote it. Mark Manson. Mark Manson. Uh, he was talking about, um, there's the discomfort aspect. That's why we don't go to the gym, because it's more comfortable to lay around and lounge and sit on my phone on Instagram while I'm watching Netflix on my laptop. That's cozy. It's nice. There's not a lot of discomfort in that. It feels relaxing. You get a bit of dopamine from it, but there's not a lot of pain involved, right? There's not a lot of pain involved with that. Um, Not immediately. I mean, in the long run, if I choose that every single day over exercising, there's going to be pain involved. For me, I notice if I choose that past like 2 to 3 days, that's about my limit to when I notice that there is pain involved. I start getting soreness, I need to stretch more, my flexibility decreases. I start getting irritated about all kinds of things, a little bit of restlessness, don't find myself as motivated or able to think clearly. Like, it's hard for me to go a week without exercising, um, at least twice in that week, and making sure I still feel well, I'm sleeping fine, like it's easy to sleep. Um, it's hard for me to go a week. Not that I don't ever go a week and not exercise. I'm just saying it's literally, I know for myself, health wise, I need to go probably every third day. I need to go to the gym. Maybe more than that, but every third day, it'll keep things kind of on track for me. If I get in a good workout every third day, I'm usually going to be all right. And that's about 2 to 3 gym days a week, which, if I'm getting any other exercise at all, usually that's usually okay if I'm watching what I eat and I'm eating healthy and things, but it causes that amount of pain, right? Okay, I gotta wear, like, get dressed, wear appropriate clothing, um, put on something. I don't dress like super nice at the gym, but I'm not like walking around in my underwear. I gotta put on something clean. I want to make sure I don't like smell sweaty before I start getting sweaty. Um, I would put on something that's presentable. Um, Even if it's workout clothes, like maybe I wouldn't wear it to go shopping at the mall or to meet up with friends for dinner or to go out, but it's like it's enough that, like, okay, if I drop by the gas station or like stop by the store real quick to like grab a meal, I'm not going to be like completely embarrassed by my outfit. Like, it's something that, like, I look like I tried to get dressed, but I'm wearing appropriate clothing for the gym, right? So just that amount of effort sometimes is like, and then I gotta drive over there, and then The parking, it's not that terrible, but it can be a thing. And it takes that small amount of attention to drive. And in a city like LA, it might not be like traffic, but just the congestion of just the people on the road and the kind of like aggressive energy of people, just having to deal with that just to get to the gym. And then you're at the gym and it doesn't feel nice necessarily. Like it's not like pleasant to like work out your muscles, to push, to like get more reps in. It's a strain. It's a physical. There is an amount of pain involved. It's not. It's a good for a good reason. You don't really build yourself without any pain in any area of life, I don't think. But there is kind of that perception of the pain of I'd rather avoid any kind of pain. Um, but it is the pain that kind of helps. Um, like if I'm exercising and I don't even feel anything, like we have a bike in our living room. It's my mom's bike. It's a stationary bike, but the resistance, even at a high level, is still a little low. Like you have to be on it for quite a few minutes to start feeling any kind of burn, even if you're going like your fastest or whatever. And so I find it to be better than nothing just because you're moving and stuff. But the ones at the gym are better because they have like way higher resistance. And so if I put my mom's bike on like a very low setting, I could literally just sit there and just like move my legs. And I could probably do that for 20, 30 minutes. It wouldn't even be painful. Unless I'm doing it like at the fastest speed I can possibly do, then I'd probably, be working up my cardio and like my heart rate and stuff. But if I'm just doing like casual, um, sorry, I'm next to this like trash compactor again. If I'm doing it just casually, then, you know, I definitely won't notice anything, right? So, what's a better workout? The one where you're sitting on a bike and drove, 10, 15 minutes to the gym. I clocked it. It takes me like 15 to 17 minutes from the time I leave my house to the time I actually can get on the machine after like getting in and checking in and getting to the locker room and like putting my bag away and stuff and making sure the lock is secure and maybe using the restroom once I get there. Then by the time I get working out, it's already been like 17 minutes. Now, if I were to work out from home, I could have sat on that bike for 17 minutes but not really gotten a very good workout. Or I can go and spend that time, and by the time I'm 2 minutes into a bike exercise, like some cycling at the gym, 2 minutes in, I could already be, feeling it, because the resistance, you can put it at such a high resistance. So it's like I can technically do things like put things at a higher resistance. Maybe I don't get as many reps in, but I definitely can feel it. Um, and yeah, I can't keep that up for like an hour or anything. Like I guess I technically could if I really pushed myself. But I don't really push myself like that. I keep it, I think at the gym I kind of keep it a little too casual sometimes. Um, but it's something. It's some movement is what I tell myself. I'm like I got out, got some fresh air, I'm around people. I'm in like a communal environment where we're kind of all here with the same goal to like work on ourselves. And yeah, there's pain involved. It hurts to lift heavy things and move your body in ways that aren't just laying around in bed or laying on the couch. That hurts. It hurts to do that more uh, than it does to sit around and lounge around. But I know mentally for me, it hurts more to sit around the house than it does to take 2 days, 3 days out of the week and just get my dang butt to the gym. I'll definitely feel better in the long run. So humans, we have this kind of issue with the short term, like this feels good now. I'd rather keep doing what feels good now than to keep doing something that gives me longer term results. Like just 2 workouts at the gym in my week, a lot of things in my week will go a lot more smoothly than if I have no workouts that week, but I'm just cozy around the house, but then mentally just kind of like a little on the agitated side, just like, need to kind of get rid of some of that negative energy in a positive way. Um, I mean, creative things help too, but it doesn't work out my physical body. It works out my mind, but it doesn't work out my physical body. I need more than just like the mental. I need it to be also, um, you know, physical. And so, I notice, for myself, that definitely is a thing. And I think for most people, that's a thing. Um, so categories, I would say, and there are more than just this, but I would say exercise or just fitness in general. Like exercise can be a point of pain for people. Um, Nutrition can be a point of pain for people going through that effort to shop and like, to cook when you would rather be not doing the work of going out and shopping. I hate shopping so much in person. Going out and shopping or, cooking. The finances come with a lot of stuff too. Um, Expenses, unnecessary expenses. Things like, having subscriptions. Most of the subscriptions we have, we don't need. And the ones that we do have, it's more of a convenience. Like, I don't want to look up everything. So I'll, you know, pay, For example, if you want to stream free movies, you can go F movies. I think they just changed it to F movie z.to. You can search movies on there for free. Yeah, you have risk of viruses and stuff. You can use a VPN. I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying it's free compared to Netflix, which is what, like $15, $18 or something. Um, you can have Spotify and YouTube for free, but you get ads, right? And when you think of it, on YouTube, you get ads anyways, right? You get ads um because people put ads in their videos that you can't really skip. Like you can skip the few minutes past their, sponsors that they're talking about, but you can't fully just, there's not like a button yet that I've seen where you can just like skip past the sponsorship advertisement. Like you still have to listen to those and they're usually long too. Um when I used to work from home, I used to put on stuff in the background on my work laptop, and I didn't like to use my login from my personal YouTube that I paid the premium subscription for. So I just use the work laptop to play YouTube in the background. And sometimes those ads, like if I let them keep playing, they'd be like a 30-minute podcast. I remember there was one about some like Bible guy. It wasn't really about the Bible too much. Maybe it was. And he was kind of just talking to different people. I don't know what he was talking about. He was some kind of, I think he was into like hunting and like some kind of guy who lived maybe out in the country somewhere that, him and I think another guy had like a podcast, but it was an advertisement. And it's like you literally have to go through the physical motion of clicking off of the ad. Otherwise it just plays. And it's like I like to listen to stuff while I drive, especially when I was driving a lot to and from San Diego. I used to listen to music and everything. And it's hard to listen to freaking music when you're it's hard to listen to music when you're, you know, just on you know, on the road or listening to like a podcast and then there's like a 30-minute advertisement in the middle of it and then you have to like find a way to get in your phone and like, you know, click off of that or whatever. It's like it's annoying, right? So if you drive a lot or you listen while you're multitasking, it makes sense that you pay a premium subscription, but you don't need it. It's just a convenience, right? Um, we can do without YouTube. We can do without any of these apps. I mean, a lot of us, well, Gen Zers, I guess, grew up with it more than millennials, but most of us millennials didn't grow up with apps. Like, I didn't have apps in my life. I mean, yeah, there was software on your computer, but like, nobody really called them apps back then. Like, people started calling them apps when when smartphones came around, and you know, it's a whole different conversation. But yeah, there's things like that. There's financial things that, like, there's the pain of not buying stuff that we don't need, you know, just because there's inconveniences involved. Usually, with that's the reason why we pay for certain stuff, is because otherwise we're going to be inconvenienced in some way. Whether it's paying an extra, like, you could pay that extra $35 for your I lost my train of thought because there's somebody over here with me now. You can pay the extra $35, um, uh, for an Instacart delivery. That's a lot of money, though. I mean, if you get two Instacart deliveries a week, that's like almost $70. Um, but you could pay that. It's not outrageous. Um, you could. There's quite a few things you could do. You could um I mean, we'll talk about that more, but yeah, there's like kind of like emotional things that people get involved with, that's um not the most helpful. So when you think of attachment, that's a big one. The fear of attachment, difficulties with attachment, um anxiety in social ways, um different things along these lines, right? I mean, they're fear provoking. Even fear of success, fear of being financially successful, educationally successful, even just moving up at your job. Some people don't take the interview just because they have a fear of not being accepted. Um, you know, things like that. So I, I really like um, that all of these really do have some form of solution to them, right? Um, like, we're not just all without answers. Like, it might seem that way, but usually the issue is kind of like the whole Jack and Mark Manson conversation of, like, yeah, there are answers. We all know what most of the answers are of what we need to do, but the pain for actually doing the things is something we'd rather avoid. And I think Jack mentioned this in some other episode too, where he was talking about um what's it called? The instant gratification. So things like apps, being on social media online, there's the instant gratification, the instant dopamine hit, versus, with working out, I do notice it kind of within that day. Like, I did notice when I went to the gym last night that I did feel like mentally in a better headspace, a little bit more than I probably would have if I would have stayed laying around all day. Um, on a Sunday, like, I felt better. So, like, yeah, I'm not gonna get like a six pack overnight and like be all buff and chiseled or anything, but at the very least, to have a positive mindset is worth 30-minute inconvenience in the gym, maybe another total of 30 something minutes getting to and from the gym. So maybe like an hour total inconvenience out of my day, because that's what it is. If I'm already home, what I used to do is I used to go after work because the gym was on the way home. So that was always my favorite thing, was when the gym was on the way home from work. It was like it was only really an inconvenience to be there. It wasn't really an inconvenience to like have to leave the house and go there because I was already at work. I was already out. I already had to drive home anyway. So if I know I just have to go like a block out of the way, park at the lot, and then walk to the gym, that's easier than being home and already cozy. Like I'm already at work. I'm already uncomfortable. I'm already pretty stressed out after work. So it made more sense to me that I like to have a buffer. So I got in way more workouts a lot of times when I was working because I was already passing the gym all the time. So it was less of an inconvenience. But when it comes to fear, I think what happens is a lot of us know how to address the fear, but we don't want that answer. We want some other version. But what one thing that I've noticed, at least from when I was working in psychology, is there's always smaller steps that you'll be willing to take. So, say for example, um, I mean, I don't want to go back to school like that. But say for example, I got burned with a PhD program, right? I totally got burned with that program. Now it led me to the same place that I think I would have been in the first place, just minus a quarter million debt. So I'm grateful for that. But there was a lot of pain involved, and you know, um, I wouldn't say there was never like a fear of failure attached to that, but it was more so um, like to want to try to go back to a school. Initially, I thought I wanted to, but then when I started doing it, because I was actually part of another school program online that wasn't accredited, and I was gonna try to get that degree, go in debt, get that degree, just so I could have the freaking doctorate, even though it wouldn't have been from an accredited university, which makes zero sense because I wouldn't have been able to like actually work. Um, it would have been a terrible idea, but I decided, like say for example, if I had decided that I did want to go back to school, let's say that was the example, that I decided wholeheartedly I want to finish this degree, I want to be, I want to get a doctorate, I want to work in this field of psychology for the rest of my life. Say if that was my mindset, but then I had the fear of failure making it so I couldn't do that. Like for me, I already had a job that I landed the next day after the school part ended, and I knew that was coming because somebody already told me. They had already talked to me about it earlier on, and so I wasn't fearful of my lifestyle changing because I was going to be getting a paycheck, so I didn't really care um that much because I was like, well, I already know a job and now I'm going to actually be getting paid to do it, whereas I wasn't getting paid at all before. I think I was getting maybe a $100 or $200 a month, but that's nothing, That's nothing at all. It was just gas money that I was getting basically back then. So, say if I actually wanted to go through with that example, right? Um, what would I do if I had fear? What would I do? Um, if I did have that much fear, um, I think I need to actually move my car. Sorry, guys. I think I'm gonna move my car to another spot because there's not enough shade here. All right, so I moved the car. I think this is a better option for me because I can sit here with the windows up, but not have to worry about people being within earshot and not have to worry too much about um, having to run my car for the air. So, um, one thing I would say is, um, you know, when there's fear of something, what we usually do is, yeah, we definitely do avoid things. Um, but then second to that, we think, oh, like the way to get to that solution is going to be so painful, I'm not going to go through with it. That's why most people don't try to get a PhD. It's not because people can't do it. It's not because, everyone has a fear of failure. I think most people, other than like the practical stuff of the debt and all these other kinds of things, or maybe they just genuinely don't like school and don't want to be in school that long. Um, but I think most people, um, they would rather um not go in, you know, not go to school and do those degrees, um, because they'll do fine without one, you know. So they don't see a reason to like push past that. Um, and it does take a lot of work to get a doctorate. Like it's not easy. You basically have to put your life on hold for like half a decade or more actually, just to get a degree. And then when you start in the work field, you're kind of starting entry level. Like you've got opportunities that you wouldn't have if you didn't have the doctorate, but you're, at least in psych, you're kind of starting entry level. Like in engineering and different fields, like you can start out making six figures like right away. But yeah, in psych, that's not really how it works. Usually you kind of got to wait and then get to a point where you can have a private practice, and that takes a while, you know. And in states like California, you've got to consider businesses and all that kind of stuff. Like, you're losing so much money working in certain states, so you really have to consider certain things. So it really is a lot, um, uh, that most people might consider too much of a risk for them to really want to consider. But there can be a lot of fear there. But say, for example, if I wanted to go back to school but just had the fear, you know, it might take many steps to get there. Like I might have to test, okay, let me take like a quick course for like a couple weeks or a couple months, see how I do. Let me become part of a Discord group or some meetup group that meets and talks things through in person. And I'm, kind of like things that help you kind of go through the motions to like expose yourself to getting comfortable little by little versus like jumping straight in, applying to schools, going to the interviews and stuff. Like if you haven't worked out all that other stuff, it's going to be hard. So we'll talk more along these levels of fear with these different topics. I want to get into those, but um, for now, this is kind of long enough. And but I do want to talk about other things like attachment and other kind of categories because I find those to be pretty important. With that, thanks for listening.